We all do bad things sometimes, things that we regret, but in the end, everything will be okay. Everything will pass over and go back to the way things were. But will it? What if you do something unforgivable? Something so awful that it will follow you for the rest of your life, or maybe even end your life. What happens to those people who just seem so evil? They shouldn't deserve to live anymore.
Well, that's what we're here to discuss. There are some crimes that the government feels cannot be excused, and when that happens, in extreme cases, those people can be sentenced to die. This is called death row, or the death penalty. The topic of death row is extremely controversial. You may meet people who believe in it, meaning they support the idea of killing those who commit truly awful crimes. Or you may meet people who think it isn't morally right and that the government should never, under no circumstance, take a human life. And then there are the people who say it depends. And what they mean by that is whether or not the crime fits the punishment, and that is where things start to get tricky. You see, the government must decide just how bad a crime is, and whether or not they do this is regulated by the Eighth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment states that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel or unusual punishments inflicted. This basically means that the punishment must be proportional to the crime committed. Today, we will be focusing on the third part of the Eighth Amendment, which is cruel and unusual punishments, and that is when the debated topic of the death penalty comes back into play. You see, some people think the death penalty falls under cruel and unusual punishments. They say that ending a human life, no matter what crime was committed, isn't right and violates the Eighth Amendment. But to understand why this is, you have to understand what cruel and unusual punishment is. Now, the definition of cruel and unusual punishment has been changed many, many times over the course of history. The phrase cruel and unusual punishment started way back in medieval England in the 1600s, and at the time, punishments were definitely cruel and unusual, and death sentence especially. They can include being hanged by the neck, having your hearts taken out, having your body divided in 4 quarters, severing your head from your body, or being burnt at the stake, and these were some of the merciful ways to go. So, we know the meaning of cruel and unusual punishments has changed over time. But what does it mean today when it comes to debated controversy of the death penalty? Well, these days, when people are sentenced to death, it usually means using lethal injection. This process is often a 3-drug protocol. Most commonly started off with injecting sodium thiopental, or pentobarbital, which knocks the inmate out, and then using pancuronium bromide, which would stop the breathing. Lastly, they use potassium chloride, which is used to stop the heart. However, there have been a few cases in which an execution was botched, meaning it didn't quite go as planned. In some cases, men were left to die in pain for nearly 2 hours. This is usually due to the use of experimental drugs a few of the states have tried. In the case of Clayton Lockett, he was executed using an untested drug cocktail. The prison officers soon realized their mistake when he began suffering tremendous agony and torment. They attempted to stop the procedure, but it was too late. Clayton died from a massive heart attack, and his death lasted 45 minutes. These botched executions raised awareness to the public and challenged whether or not lethal injection is constitutional. So while some people believe in death row, others don't. The controversy of whether or not it violates the Eighth Amendment is still being debated at this moment. To some people, death row is an appropriate punishment in some cases. However, in my opinion, I believe death row is a waste of time, money, and effort. It costs about $1.26 million to execute someone using lethal injection because of court costs, equipment, and the drugs themselves. If we're killing someone for murder in the name of justice, that makes us no better than what they've done. Where does their authority to end lives come from? And that is what I ask you. What is your opinion?